it. I'll just change some of my marketing over to focus on the solution seeker. And then in doing so, they're still using information seeker language, right? So the key, I think, to understand the easiest initial distinction, and there's tons of nuance to this, but the initial distinction that I think is a great starting point for everybody is information seekers are seeking how to information.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another podcast session here at High Level called the High Level Spotlight Sessions. I have the honor of bringing on Nicholas Kusmich. He was one of our speakers at this year's event and couldn't make it due to last minute some travel things that he dealt with. And I asked Nicholas, hey, can we get you on a podcast and we'll share some of the things that you might have shared at the event. So Nicholas, he's the founder of the H2H Media Group, is best known as a leading digital advertising strategist and having some of the largest ROIs in the space of marketing. He's also responsible for generating well over $600 million plus of revenue through Facebook ads or Meta ads. He's a top Inc. 500 New York Times bestselling author, and all the medals that you can think of in the space. He's someone that we have a lot of respect for. So, Nicholas, thanks for jumping in on a podcast session with me, man. I think
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, I'm super stoked to be to chatting with you and jamming on stuff, and I can't wait to see where the conversation goes.
awesome, man. So you're based out of British Columbia, and tell us a little bit about your story. How did you get started in the world of online business, the agency space, the marketing world, the consulting space, and yada yada yada?
Oh, that, yeah, totally by mistake. There was like no intentions behind any of it. It just kind of happened. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I'm an only child. I witnessed my father have his first heart attack when I was 4 years old. And that was the beginning of, I mean, I spent 17 years in and out of hospital with my dad. He passed in 2005, but en route to there, he had a lot of health complications. My mother's an immigrant who had, immigrated from overseas, couldn't speak English very well. And so me as an only child, basically when I was 17 years old, my father had his second stroke, which didn't allow him to work anymore. So my mom and dad had their own little convenience store business, never made enough to really pay the bills. There was always more month than money, but it was what it was. I was the only child. And then when my father had that last episode before he passed, it just dawned on me that things were going to be difficult and things were going to rest on my shoulders. So my father couldn't work anymore, which meant my mother had to go find a job. Of course, she couldn't speak English very well. So she tried to get a job, came back, unable to get a job. And so it kind of forced me into this position as the only kid in my family to say, okay, I've got to figure out how to support my family. So as a young, impressionable 17-year-old at the time, I was like, okay, I go to the internet and say how to make money online. And of course, that opens up a whole array of scams and this and that. And I joined multi-level marketing companies, and I joined envelope stuffing companies and survey filling out companies. But all that, if we were to condense it, took me to an experience where I came across the work of Corey Rudel. Now, some people who are reading this probably don't know who Corey is. Corey is the godfather of internet marketing. He's the first person to sell something online and then teach other people how to do that long, long time ago. And I come across one of his work, and it essentially said, hey, if you want to sell something online, you've got to write some sort of a content piece. And back then, ebooks were all a rage. So you go on to write an ebook, and then you want to sell that ebook online somewhere. And at the time, Google was the 800-pound gorilla. That's where everyone bought traffic from. But I was a little too late to that game. Like, they had already had the panda and the penguin slap and all these other animal slaps, and people were freaking out and saying, I can't afford to keep going on this platform. But right around that time, and again, the timing was just right, where Facebook had released their advertising platform in beta, as did a company called plentyoffish.com. Some people might know what that is. And the pitch was the same from both. They're like, look, we have all this user data of people utilizing our platform. And for the smart advertiser, you can take and target or micro target segments of our user database with relevant offers. And back then, just please know, everyone listening, it was the wild, wild west. You could say anything you want. You could show whatever you want. You could do whatever you want. But again, my training was, hey, write an ebook, which I did under a pen name, and then sell it through a landing page and whatnot through paid channels. And so I jumped on Facebook and I jumped on Plenty of Fish at the same time running ads. And probably like 4 or 5 months into it, I said, you know what? I should make a decision one way or another. Which platform am I going to choose? Thankfully, I call it the $600 million decision. We chose Facebook instead of Plenty of Fish for no other reason than just a hunch. And that was kind of my foray into figuring out A, how am I going to support my family? And B, what does it mean to be an internet entrepreneur? How to sell online? What are all the things around that? And that was kind of the kickoff to get going, because again, I say it was forced. It wasn't an option of mine. I had to figure out a way to take care of my family. And through got a ton of trial and error and a bunch of failures, we started to figure it out. And the rest, as they say, I guess, was history.
Well, I think that's one hell of a launch pad. And the immigrant story is something that I love because I have, my family is very similar. Came from another country. They try to
Right.
make new means happen in the US over the years. And you can see the trials and tribulations a immigrant family goes through. And there's always this the one black sheep in the family that figures out the internet. Like I have
Sure.
cousins that are all bunch of physicians and
Yep.
nurses and engineers, and then you got Paulson over here trying to sell coupons on the internet.
On the internet. Yep. I
That's
love
where it
it.
all starts. But
Yeah.
Nicholas, you and I spoke, and I know about your story. Your agency success is incredible. So congrats on that entire world of work that you've already done. But one
Yeah.
of the things that we talked about prepping for this podcast is the no funnel approach and sales around that. First of all, can you help define how you see what a funnel is? And then let's
Yeah.
talk about the no funnel approach.
I appreciate that. And so there's a couple things, like, I don't know who to give credit to, but someone started this concept of the funnel, right? And the analogy that you throw things in the top and then the funnel like sifts and sorts and sends the best people at the bottom. We've all been taught it in the internet marketing space. In fact, it's so pervasive that you could go to like a knitting conference and someone there who's trying to sell something has heard about a funnel. Like it's outrageous the reach that this terminology has had. And it seems to be the bedrock of all things marketing. So I define a funnel simply in its simplest form as where you put something out on the internet, typically a landing page that requires an opt-in. So usually a name and an email, or a name, email, and phone number, in exchange for some sort of how-to information. And then the object of the business owner or the marketer is that once you've gathered that lead, you then nurture them through a sequence of events, whether those are webinars or emails or whatever. And then at some point you make an offer to the person. So for many, it's considered a customer journey where you capture the lead, nurture the lead, then convert the lead. But yeah, to me, a funnel in its simplest sense is an opt-in requirement for some sort of how-to information in order to be able to market and sell that person into whatever it is you're trying to sell.
Absolutely. And you and I know the relationship between marketing and sales, obviously, from
Mm-hmm.
the business world, right? Like the marketing role is to essentially create the traffic. Sales role is to obviously field the traffic. So can you help us understand what you mean by the no funnel approach to generating qualified sales? Because my gut tells me there's a bridge between marketing and sales there.
Yeah, there definitely is a bridge to marketing and sales. And some of the statistics I think is important to note. And I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. So please, internet, don't kill me for naming the wrong statistic. But something like 62% of all buying decisions are made before they actually are presented with the offer. Now that's, I don't know if it's 62, it's 82 or 52, but somewhere around there, we have to recognize that the buying decision of a prospect is made well before the offer for the thing is actually ever made. So that gives you a very clear indication on the role or purpose of marketing in and of itself. I hear some people say it this way, and I think there's some truth to this, that good marketing negates the need for difficult sales. So if you do marketing well, then when you get to the sales thing, it's just a very easy transaction. Or bad marketing has a requirement of very aggressive or crafty or manipulative sales as a result. So there's definitely a bridge there. Yes, I think there's a lot of people that define and separate those things. There's marketing and there's sales, but I think they go hand in hand. Good marketing leads to sales, and good sales is the byproduct of good marketing. When you can bring the two together, then you have something powerful here. Now, when I'm talking about the no funnel approach, I just want to be very clear to say that I understand that funnels work. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm not saying that if you've built a multi-million dollar business around them, that you shouldn't continue to use them. My argument, though, is that well, can I just say this? I think there are three things that are wrong about funnels. We should hopefully spawn some great conversation between me and you, Paulson. Is it okay if I kind of just go over those and use that as a launch pad?
Yeah, let's talk about the three areas that we should consider when it comes to the no funnel approach.
I love that. So the first thing, here's the first thing is, let's just ask about the speed of a funnel, right? We were taught that a funnel is something where you throw leads on the top, the prospects get sifted and sorted, it slows down the process, and then it spits out the great people on the end. Well, let's just think about that metaphor as a starting point. If you come over to my house, I've got a bunch of funnels everywhere, different types, different everything, because I have to prove the point. But one thing I did with my kids is when we were out in the hot tub, I took one of these funnels out to the hot tub and I took a mug with me. And I scooped up the mug and I simply turned it upside down. And what I noticed was the water obviously came out very fast out of the bottom, instantly. Turn it upside down, fine. The second thing, though, I noticed is when I scooped that mug and I put it in the top of a funnel, a couple of interesting observations happened. Observation number one was that 100% of what I put in the top came out the bottom. Okay. That's not what we were taught about what funnels do. Funnels are supposed to sift and sort and only the best come out the bottom. That is not the case. Whatever I put in the top of the funnel, 100% of it came out the bottom. So the metaphor in and of itself is broken to start with. But secondly, what I did notice is that whatever I put on the top, it actually slowed down the flow of what came out the bottom. Now, I don't know about you, Paulson, but I know if I'm doing any sales or marketing, I don't want to slow down the process. I actually want to speed up the process. And there in and of itself is my first argument of what I don't like about funnels is traditionally they slow down the prospect's process. And if you think about it just from a very specific standpoint, they've got to opt into something. And then there's 1,000,001 resistance points before the person ever has the opportunity to make a transaction. So an opt-in is a resistance point. Even in the opt-in field, if you ask one too many questions, like name, email, and phone number, if you ask 2 questions instead of 3, that's a resistance point. Then you want them to read your book, read your lead magnet, show up to a webinar, stay to the pitch. Like all of these are actually slowing down a prospect's ability to transact with you. And this is detrimental to someone who's like, I've got a problem and I need you to solve it. I want you to see it from a different perspective. I like to give an example of, let's say there is somebody who is sick and they need to get to the hospital. They have 2 ways to get there. We're going to present 2 opportunities. Opportunity number 1 is to get into a 1971 Ford Pinto that barely runs and take a series of windy streets that are covered in speed bumps in order to get to the hospital. Option 1. Option 2 is getting a 2024 Ford, well, they don't make it in 2024, 2022 Ferrari Pista, put them in that 488 and say, go in a straight way to the actual hospital. Which would you prefer? Now, I don't know about you, Paulson, but I'll take the Ferrari any day of the week and go straight beeline to the hospital, especially if I'm in a rush and there's an emergency. Now, using that same analogy, I want you to imagine that your prospect has a problem and you have a solution. Your agency, your product, your service, your consulting, your coaching program. And you have the ability to build the path for your prospect who has a problem to get to their solution. Now, which would you choose? Would you rather them take the long, windy route in an old broken down car that was covered in speed bumps? Or would you rather them take the beeline straight direction into your solution and offer it to them that way? That's the fundamental question I ask via the metaphor, that what would you prefer? And most people obviously say, well, I'd prefer the Ferrari and 488 Pista. Great. Then why do all of our marketing activities resemble the Ford Pinto with a bunch of windy streets covered in speed bumps? A good friend of mine, Jesse Elder, says, funnels are like speed bumps to supercars. right? And prospects are like supercar drivers. They have a need for speed, generally speaking. And so the more you put in their way, the more difficult it is to get to the end process, which then kind of brings us to number two. If we talked about the speed of the funnel being one problem, then the other question, the second thing that we will need to talk about is what about the complexity of a funnel? And I'm talking both to the person who has to create it and to the person who is actually going through it. So for the person to create it, I mean, the more steps you have in a funnel, the more complex it is for you to try and design and create and whatever. I don't know about you, Paulson, but the last time I tried to come up with a webinar, it took me weeks to come up with the webinar content. Then you got to get the tech. Then you got to implement the tech into it and make it all work and fancy. Then you need 1,000,001 text verifications and build AI into it. And you've got 1,000,001 things kind of operating in order to get someone to the final product. Problem with that is with complexity comes breakage. But I also want you to see that from the prospect standpoint. With complexity comes leakage. So for each individual extra step we put in the way between our solution and the prospect wanting that solution, the higher probability people will fall off the bandwagon. A great example of this is, again, webinars. Now, I'm not coming against webinars. If you run them, all the power to you. But let's say you get 500 people registered to a webinar. The average show up rate for a webinar is about 20%. That means 100 people actually show up to the webinar. Now, of that, the average rate for people to stay all the way to the end and watch your offer is 30%. So we started with 500, we're down to 30% seeing the offer. Let's say you sell high ticket, like an agency service. Of the 30% who see that, maybe 10% are actually going to book a call to talk to you about going into. Now we're down to 10 people. Right? And if your conversion rates for your sales team is really, really strong, let's say you convert at 30%. That means of the 500 people who started this process, 3 become potential clients. 3. So that to me shows bleed all along the way. And here's the worst part. Your best prospect probably never opted in for the webinar in the first place, which brings me to point number 3. And then after this, Paulson, we can delve into any of these a lot deeper. But point number 3 about the funnel is, in my opinion, it attracts the wrong type of prospect and repels the right type of prospect. So who's wrong and who's right? I've personally categorized every prospect into 2 categories. And I'm going to suggest that a marketer's greatest opportunity this year when they're marketing is to focus on the right type of prospect, their best prospect versus the wrong type. So let me kind of break them down for you. I break down prospects into 2 categories. One is what I would call an information seeker, and the second is what I would call a solution seeker. Now, let's just look at an information seeker first. An information seeker is just that. Someone who loves to perpetually gather more information. They're hoarders of information. So what is their behavior? They opt in from one webinar to the next, to the next, to the next. They listen from one podcast to the next, to the next. They watch one YouTube video to the next, to the next. And they're obsessed with what I call just in case information. Now, there's a difference between just in case information and just in time information. Just in case information is like, maybe one day I'm going to host a webinar, so I might as well buy a course today that teaches me how to do webinars. Complete waste of time. Just in time information is like, oh my God, I got to host a webinar on Thursday. I better buy a course to know how to do the webinar before Thursday so I can get it done and present it. Right? So you have information seekers who are hoarding more information. They are not looking to pay for any solutions, which is why they're opting into free information. They ask the question, how can I help myself versus who can help solve this for me? And the conversion window for these people are extremely long. They take anywhere from 90 days to 10 years to convert. Let's see the flip side though, the solution seeker. A solution seeker says, I'm not looking for information. In fact, I could care less about information. I want a solution and I want it right now. I'm willing to pay premium dollar for that solution because I need it solved, because I have more time. I have more money than I do time. I value time higher than I do money. So they're looking to just pay for a solution, get to the other end to make sure that it all works. Their question is not, how can I help myself? Their question is, who can solve this problem for me? And the key distinction here is whenever they see a traditional opt-in for a funnel, they know exactly what that is. And they know that if they could give their name and their email, they're going to be bombarded for the next 90 days with emails and texts and messages and videos and this and that, trying to sell them something like, I have no time for that. I just want the solution. Here's a perfect example of this as we drive this home. I was on Instagram scrolling and I saw this great ad. Dude was like on point. His copy was great. The video was great. He was selling some sort of like productivity thing. And I just made a decision in my mind to say, hey, whatever this guy is selling on the next page, this ad is so good that as long as it's $2,000 or less, I'm going to buy it. No questions asked. So I'm watching this ad. I click on the learn more button just below. And guess what it takes me to? A freaking webinar opt-in page. And guess what I did? I abandoned ship. There's no way in hell that this person is going to get any more of my time. My time is way too important to me. This person is not going to get any more of my time. Now, if he had just made an offer, I would have bought it because I am a solution seeker. But he didn't. He thought everyone's an information seeker. He thought everyone needs to be nurtured. He thinks everyone needs to follow an ascension model. And so he lost a sale from someone like me. And here's the reality. No matter what industry you are in, there is a segment of your marketplace that are solution seekers. And if you don't have a process geared specifically towards them, and all of your marketing material are information seeker funnels, you are leaving your best prospects on the table, people who don't have price objections, people who don't have any concerns, people who just want to move forward and pay you top dollar.
So yeah, there's three things that you really laid out that is a total rude awakening for most. I don't know if I should call it the funnel hacker world or like the world of marketing in general, right?
Right.
Because we all have this impression that funnels are the life saviors of everything. And it's just, I think maybe it's with indoctrination, maybe it's from content marketing, whatever it is, we have a lot of misunderstanding. So here's what I understood from everything you shared so far,
Sure.
Nicholas. There is a way to build business without the standard funnel approach, the no funnel approach to sales. The three things that you really laid out was number one, the argument is having a funnel slows down the traffic in getting to your offer. Number two is the complexity of the funnel systems in general for the provider as well as the consumer. Number three is the bifurcation of the type of customers that are coming in, whether they're information seekers or solution seekers.
Yes.
Can you talk first? Let's talk about the first thing, which is the speed of funnels. Like, first of all, why do you think marketers, online businesses, digital entrepreneurs, why do you think they set up funnels in general to create those speed bumps like your friend said? Why does that, how is that even a thing?
I think because one of the greatest myths propagated in the marketing industry is that leads need to be nurtured before they make a transactional decision. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that some leads need to be nurtured before making a transactional decision, but the perception is that all leads need to have multiple touch points before making a transactional decision has led to the advent or the creation of the modern day funnel, because that's essentially what it is. It captures a lead and then through that puts multiple touch points in the process. And that is 100% true for an information seeker, our worst type of prospect. But it is not true for a solution seeker, because I don't know about you, Paul, so I don't want to make like assumptions here, but I'm going to guess you're kind of like me, where you value your time more than your money. I will pay for a solution if it saves me time, no matter what that price point is. And there's an entire marketplace of those people. Now, if we're speaking to agency people specifically, this is even more true for you, because the reason a prospect is coming into your world is because they're saying, I don't want to do it myself. I want to pay you to do it. So it's even more true in an agency world where the prospect is like, in my case, let's say I'm running a meta advertising agency. A classic example is back in the day, because I bought into the idea that I needed a funnel, I put out lead magnets in the world that said something along the lines of, there's multiple ones, but one of them was like how to write great ads. And I got 80,000 downloads of this thing over the duration of about a year. Now, if you think about it in hindsight, how silly is that? Because yes, it's a great lead magnet and the information seeker is going to love that in terms of content. But if someone is downloading a lead magnet of how to write a great Facebook ad, do you think they want to hire me as an agency to do that? Of course they don't. They wouldn't be looking for that type of information. So in answer to your question, yeah, I think it's because we have been fed the lie that every single a customer journey, every single prospect needs multiple touch points before making a transactional decision. And I'm here to show you, and probably everyone has a realization of someone in their world who kibossed that play. Like that was not true for them. They got involved without needing a funnel, which is why I encourage people to think about all the people who did that and how easy that sale was. And then wouldn't you just want more of those people rather than going after the information seeker? So I think that's why people have adapted and adopted the funnel play, because of that one fundamental myth that is confusing the marketplace right now.
That's really interesting because I mean, we're doing a high level podcast, and even the high
Mm-hmm.
level platform is obviously built, some of it is built around lead nurturing, lead scoring,
Sure.
some of these things that support the idea that you need all these touch points. Now, I'll tell you the same thing that Nicholas is telling you. There are different types of avatars that look similar,
Sure.
right? The information seekers versus the solution seekers. Like today morning, my furnace went out, I guess. The heater's not working. It's like
Oh
40
no.
degrees here in
Yeah.
Texas, which is very rare. And I call Tommy, my good old guy that comes and checks in all the stuff. My wife texts and she's like, Paulson, make sure you call Tommy today. I'm like, cool. Tommy, can you be here in 30 minutes? I literally left a check at the door because I had a lot of live streams today, and
Yep.
I didn't even talk to him today.
Yep.
He picked up the check. He has the codes to open my house and went in the attic, fixed everything, and told me it was some transformer slash capacitator thing. Like I literally didn't even talk to him.
Yep. Yep.
I can see him pull up to my driveway, but that was it. Like I'm a classic solution seeker today when it comes to my HVAC.
Yeah.
So thinking about the complexity of the funnel system, first of all, a lot of us techies here are, in the high level world.
Yes, of
we
course. And
we we
I'm in the
have
high level world too, for sure. Like, like I get it.
we complicate it just for fun. I don't know why
Yeah,
it is.
it's true.
Like just because we feel like more needs to get done, or
Sure.
can you speak to the complexity of the funnel? What are some
Yeah.
things that most marketers make a mistake on, and maybe add to it and give us some ideas of how to simplify the complexity?
Yeah, I love that. So let's use a couple of examples. Like, let's use your HVAC guy as an example, right? If that HVAC company bought into the idea that you need a funnel to get a customer, they might have put out some content on the internet. They might have have an opt-in form with a lead magnet that says, Paulson, hey, let me show you how to fix your funnel, your furnace, right? How ludicrous would have that been? You had a furnace that stopped working. Your prospect has an issue that's an emergency. If that thing doesn't get fixed ASAP, your wife is going to be pretty damn pissed that it's so cold in the house. And so you're not looking for more information at this point. You're like, give me the damn solution. One call to Tony, he arrives, blah, 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 blah. You don't even talk to him. He gets the check. You get your solution. End of day. Thank you very much. Right? Great example of that. So when we talk about complexity, I just want you to be thinking about either speed bumps, as the metaphor puts it, or what I more likely like to use is the term resistance points. So the problem that I see with most people's funnel, and it's under the guise that you need multiple touch points, but it's almost like for fun. And I love how you said that, because most of us funnel people are like, yeah, I want to see how complex and intricate I can make my funnel to make it seem fancy. We add unnecessary resistance points. So the balance in this world is understanding what is the least amount of resistance points that are required to obtain a qualified prospect, but not too many where it turns people off. So just for the sake of this example, let's talk about what resistance points are in a traditional funnel. I already alluded to it a little bit, but let's kind of go deeper into it. The first resistance point in any typical funnel is an opt-in page, right? You get to a page and it says, hey, I want to give you information, but rather than giving you information, I'm going to withhold it until you give me something first. So that in and of itself feels icky, but it is what it is, so be it. So then we require something of our prospect before ever giving anything to them. I think that's a problem in itself, but that's a resistance point. Now, even when you look at a traditional opt-in page, you could ask for just email. You could ask for email and name. You could ask for email, name, and phone number. You could ask for email, name, phone number, address, all sorts of information. And the more you ask, the more resistance points, meaning the more likely someone's going to say at some point, nah, I'm not going to do that.
So I'm going to assume, Nicholas, that you probably have a lot of fun just laughing when you go through a funnel and it's like 100-question survey.
Right.
It's just like, of course, we're going to add complexity to
100%.
it. And that's just one of those things you do.
Yeah. Well, and on that note, the balls, and it's not just like the survey. It's like every additional click on a page is a resistance point. So like one key thing is, of course, if someone were to get on the phone call with someone on my sales team, they have to fill out some sort of an application to do that. We don't just let anybody do that. But, you look at our application versus other people's applications, and our applications is very short. It's poignant. It only asks qualifying questions and nothing else. I don't care about anything else except do you qualify. If they do qualify, then they get onto a sales call. But even on that note, my application page isn't on a separate page from my landing page because that's an additional click. And a click is a drop-off point. It is resistance. So even think about every additional minute in a video, every additional second in a video is resistance. Every additional question on a form is resistance. Every additional click in the process is resistance. If you ask someone to do something that they wouldn't normally do is resistance. So the key here, again, is understanding how do you reduce the number of resistance points so that you are only asking the bare minimum to allow someone to qualify themselves before having a conversation with them.
I love that. And the third pillar that you really talked about was the different type of temperatures that an avatar is at. So you have the information seekers and you also have the solution seekers.
Yes.
I guess let's get to the point of the solution seekers.
Sure.
Obviously, it makes sense to go after the hottest, most active buyers versus interest buyers, which is the way I kind of teach
like
my
that
stuff. But either way, how do we then figure out who are the active buyers or solution seekers, and how do we attract them so we don't have wasted efforts on sales and marketing?
I love that. So one thing we can't do is tap into all of our prospects' brains and identify as a result. Are you a solution seeker or are you an information seeker? I mean, if we had that technology, I'd be all over it. Unfortunately, we don't. So what we have to recognize is the market is the market. But how do we attract, to the second part of the question, which I love, is how do we attract only the solution seeker? And here's where I think a lot of people have the broken nuance of not understanding how to carry that over. Because someone will hear a conversation like this, or they'll hear me talk about this and be like, oh, okay, I'll get it. I'll just change some of my marketing over to focus on the solution seeker. And then in doing so, they're still using information seeker language, right? So the key, I think, to understand the easiest initial distinction, and there's tons of nuance to this, but the initial distinction that I think is a great starting point for everybody is information seekers are seeking how-to information. So if your ad leads with any type of promise around how to something, download my lead magnet to figure out how to, come to my webinar to figure out how to, watch my video to learn how to, you already know that you're targeting the wrong type of person because how to information is being sought after by information seekers. Instead, you want to be solution oriented and you want to talk about a solution. But here's a key distinction that I actually want to spend some time talking about, Paulson, because I think it's important. It's the problem with the modern day marketer, particularly one who goes, okay, I get it, fine, let's just target solution seekers, is now all they talk about in their marketing is the solution, which is half the equation. But the other half of the equation actually And I got to give credit to the category pirates. They come up with this concept. But the real key here is you've got to sell the idea, not your solution. If you sell the idea, then you automatically become the category king or queen, and your solution becomes the next easy decision for people to make. When you sell the solution itself, people are like, oh, well, that guy's just trying to sell something to me. And I'll give you a real life, transparent example of what we're doing on this call right now.
Absolutely.
I have not yet even talked about how I could provide a solution for people who understand this. We have spent the last however many minutes in this conversation talking about one thing, and that is the idea of a broken funnel. That's all we've been talking about here. And there's going to be some people who listen to this and are going to be like, bullshit. I don't like it. I don't know. I'm a funnel guy, die hard. Screw you, Nick. You're the devil. Forget it. We're not going to do this. Cool. You're not my ideal prospect anyways. But there's going to be some of you who are going to watch this and be like, damn, that makes sense. I've been wasting so much time and so much energy. Now, if they come to that belief and they've adapted this ideology that I've been presenting, then if they're my ideal prospect and I made an offer to them for our solution, it's an easy, reasonable yes. Right. So I think that's the key to understanding when you market to a solution seeker. You can't just market the solution. You got to market the idea, which is the solution that they're looking for. And if you could buy into the idea, then they become an easy prospect for you. And the last thing I'll say about this, unless you want to unpack it more, which I'm happy to, is that the idea has to be different, not better. So different is better than better. Because the moment you present your agency as faster, cheaper, better, more efficient, whatever it is that you want to put, or your business doesn't have to be an agency, you have automatically entered into the comparison game. Because they're going to be like, well, faster than what? Cheaper than what? More expensive than what? And this was the biggest mistake that Pepsi Cola made in their marketing campaigns years and years ago when they did the Pepsi Taste Test Challenge. I don't know if you remember this, Paulson, where they went around traveling America with 2 cups, one Coca-Cola, one Pepsi, and they covered it and they say, taste both and tell me what you like better. It doesn't matter which people liked better. Coca-Cola that year had to spend $0 on marketing because Pepsi was doing all their work for them. They were bringing Coca-Cola to because they were comparing. Right. So I'm here again. Let's go meta now. Let's go one step back to even looking at this podcast. If we're looking at this podcast here, I'm not saying I, Nicholas, have a better funnel than so-and-so. I'm not saying my super fancy 2.0 AI funnel is better than a webinar funnel. Look, if you want funnels, do not come to me. I cannot help you because I'm not a better option. I am a different option. The ability to go completely against the traditional funnel and to move into our space. And I think that is a key that most agencies or most marketers don't do. They're competing against standing out and they're selling their solution versus selling the idea. When you can understand both of those, you attract solution seekers into your world.
Yeah, I love what you're saying because it reminds me of early on. I think the third agency that we were building, we're at like almost 46 or 47 employees at that point in
Wow.
Dallas.
Yeah.
And we were, really a white label agency, which is essentially the powerhouse behind HighLevel's marketplace. We don't do those services anymore, but early on we did. And I
Yeah.
built that team. And I would see and observe a lot of team members going
Hmm.
through extremes, right? So
Hmm.
you like, and I notice the third thing that we're talking about, the idea that the marketer has to present relevance to the solution seekers versus information seekers. A lot of times people swing to extremes. So
Right.
they go from how to's to then going about guaranteed offers, right?
Sure.
There's no navigation in between. And that's something that
Hmm.
I've seen team members do. So whenever you tell them, hey, this is not the right thing, or maybe you need to improve it, they'll go swinging extreme to the other side with a solution or idea. And your marketing brand position does not need to swing and wave one way or another, where one newsletter is talking about we guarantee 25 new appointments for the dentist.
Sure.
Then the next one is like, here is how to build a funnel. Like
Yeah, yeah, right.
none of these things are connecting together. And I think
Yes,
that's a
exactly.
point that I would love for you to unpack. How do we find the right balance of relevance so we do attract the solution seekers? Because I think that's the key to good marketing versus non-difficult sales, going
Yeah.
back to our original thought.
I agree. And I think there's 2 points that we can mention here. One point is um, I'm not opposed to any marketer or any company having two separate focuses, but understand that they're completely separate. So if you're going to have a traditional funnel, so be it. Have that funnel and know that that is dedicated to information seekers. And if that serves your business and you need some of that, then all the power to it. I'm just saying, don't ignore the solution seekers, and you can have both. But to your point, don't try to mix the two together because they're not. Right. So then when it comes to relevance, I think it's where I see most people dropping the ball is not understanding what the solution seekers actually want, right? It's again the nuance of like assuming that solution seekers are just better information seekers, which they're not. They're completely different people. So when you recognize, here's a couple things I know true about solution seekers that might help guide this conversation even further. One thing that I know true about information seekers is that they value time more than money, right? So all of our funnel processes or all of our processes, all the information that we give out, any of that has to be cognizant of the fact that if you ask too much of that prospect, too much time, right? I want to get on an hour-long discovery call with you. I want you to watch an hour-long webinar. I want you to whatever it is, right? The moment you ask for too much of their most prized asset, you've lost them. So they value time more than money. The second thing is they are not price averse, but they are risk averse. So usually in our sales conversations, it's never a can I afford it or can I not? If we've done our marketing correctly and we've brought in the right type of people, it's not, oh, that's more than I can afford. But they are adverse to investing into a solution if they know that there is very to little no buy-in from the provider of that solution. So if all the risk is geared towards the prospect, you're going to lose them as opportunities. But if you know how to mitigate the risk by one way or another, and you could do that with guarantees, you could do that with all sorts of promises, you could do that with all sorts of clauses. But if you can learn how to mitigate the risk, then the conversation is better. Here's the third thing I also understand true about solution seekers. Not all solution seekers, but the vast majority of them. Solution seekers, and here's a key distinction, are no different than luxury buyers. Okay. So when you study the mindset of those who spend luxury versus regular, you start to understand how these people operate. So what I mean by that is these people will fly private or first class. They will never ride economy or a coach. And if you just think about from that perspective, what would be the conversation you'd have if you're trying to sell a plane ticket to someone who's trying to sell economy, which is, oh, price and this and that, and pick your seats and you get bags, versus someone who's going to fly business who doesn't care about what the price of that is, right? So that's a key to it's the people who wear Louis Vuitton. It's the dudes and gals who drive supercars. Like I drive a supercar. My damn car cost me $800,000. And do you think it's because it has air conditioning or it takes me from point A to B? That's why I bought it. The radio sucks on the car. It fits two people in there. It's extremely uncomfortable to get in and out of. I mean, there's no practical value to this machine. But why did I buy it? Because of the intrinsic value of it. So it's a different conversation. If you walk into a McLaren dealership, that conversation is different than you walking into a Honda or Toyota dealership. Now, it's not that one car is better than the other. It doesn't matter. But what we have to recognize is they're different people. So when you can start to understand now the mindset, the conversations, the needs, the desires, solution seekers are heavy. Again, the most equivalent I could say are like luxury buyers, people who have a different mindset about buying decisions. When you can understand that and gear your content around that, that's now more relevant. And a great simple example of this is people in that category like to buy status. They like to buy access. They like to buy speed. They like to buy things that they can brag about. Like these are things that motivates that type of buyer versus someone else. So if you keep that in mind a little bit, it helps guide the content and the relevance and the marketing approaches that we put out to that particular type of prospect.
I love that. So on today's session, just to really unpack and summarize everything, we talked about the no funnel approach to having right, relevant sales opportunities. The first thing we talked about was the speed of the funnel systems. And we're not necessarily talking about a certain landing page. Hopefully, you pick that up as you watch this, but the idea and the principles behind how a funnel functions, the speed and the resistance that it creates. Number two, the pillar was the complexity and
Right.
how that creates a certain types of experience for that avatar that comes in or out. And the third is really around the different types of intention each type of avatar would have. You have the
Right.
information seekers versus the solution seekers. Any final thoughts on this topic for you, Nicholas, as we just kind of close out?
Well, I want to say a couple things that hopefully land for the right prospect. And that is one, I believe that any business's greatest opportunity in the next 365 days does not come in trying to find a better mousetrap or a better funnel. And that is what we usually perpetuate, right? It's like, oh, my webinar funnel's not working. Let's do a book funnel. Oh, the book funnel's not working. Let's do a challenge. Oh, the channel funnel's not working. Let's do this. Let's do that. And we just perpetually find the next best mousetrap. And that served us to a certain degree, but I'm going to say that those are incremental gains in growth. If you want exponential gains in growth, your greatest opportunity is found in recognizing that it's not a better mousetrap, it's a better prospect that you need to go after. And fortunately, a better prospect doesn't need a complicated traditional funnel. It can be a very simplified process. I'll just throw this out there as a good example. It's how I came into HighLevel. Like most people pre-HighLevel were using other platforms. And what did HighLevel do? And said, hey, well, there was a white labeling aspect. Different is better than better. There was the aspect of, hey, it's all in one rather than the messy confusionness of all these separate duct tape solutions. Different is better than better. And then the third one was somebody just said, hey, Nick, you got to check this out. Someone that I trusted. So did I have to attend a webinar? No. Did I have to read a whole bunch of material on it? No. I was referred based on someone I trust, and the positioning was different. So I said, you know what? I'm in. And whatever the highest level account you guys have is what I pay for every single month. Right. So I'm a great example of, and HighLevel is a great example of this. And so I say that all to say is when you can understand that A, that's your greatest opportunity. B, every industry has solution seekers that are being completely ignored and just waiting for someone to come by and saying, you've got a problem, let me solve it for you. And then thirdly, if you can get over the mindset traps of, again, I'm not asking anybody to abandon your funnels. If they work for you, keep going with them, but don't abandon the opportunity of the solution seeker, because that's a great opportunity for you. If you could just take those three things, I think there's great testimonials that if we revisited next year of people who said, I heard it, I did it, I got results now, look at me. We'll see a great message coming out from some people saying, hey, that was my fastest path to growth this year.
I love that. Nicholas, before we close out, how can people find you? What are some of the cool projects that you're working on right now? Anything they can get plugged into, feel free to share that.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, let me share three things. Number one, if anything that we discussed here kind of makes sense to you and you want to have a conversation with us to see if we can help you, if you go to workwithnick.com, workwithnic.com, this is for the solution seeker who's like, I don't need any more content. Let's just have a conversation, see if it's a good fit. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. For those who are information seekers, which again, if you listen to an hour-long podcast, some of you might fit into that category. I have a newsletter that goes out every Thursday. It's great content all about how to sell high ticket without a funnel and how to make all that work. It's at nicholaskusmich.co. So not .com, but .co. If you subscribe to the newsletter, I give you a free copy of my book, Give, that you get as part of that. And you just kind of get all the information on a weekly basis of how to grow your high ticket business. So I think those two, and then of course, social. Fortunately, Paulson, I am the only Nicholas Kusmich on the planet. So as long as you know how to spell my name, you can easily find me on any social channel, and I'm happy to interact with people that way as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Nicholas, for being part of our high level family as
Oh, I
well.
love it.
You
I
were
love
one
it.
of our early adopters. Any of you that are watching, in case if you're not a high leveler just yet, or even a SaaSpreneur just yet,
What are you doing?
I don't
Hurry
know,
up and get
right?
on board. Jesus, it's not that difficult of a decision. Get on HighLevel. It'll save so much headache and effort. I know you didn't tell me to say that, but I just need people to hear it.
Yeah, and just because of the podcast, we're doing a 30-day trial that you might find somewhere here in the
Awesome.
description. And that's just for us to test out the YouTube channel once in a while here and there. You always have our standard 14-day one as well. If you want to skip all of it, go right into it, jump on with one of our solutions Zoom session consultants, and they will set it up for you as well.
Love that.
But either way, have a good rest of your day. Looking forward to seeing you all on our next session. Nicholas, thank you. Hope to see you at our next event or our conference this year. 2024.
Yeah,
I know you wanted to come on the
I
last one.
did
We
so
just
bad.
couldn't make it happen, but thanks for jumping on a quick podcast session here, my guy.
No, I appreciate your time, and thanks for taking the time to have this conversation with me.
Okay, take care. Bye, everybody.